the MIB 1 system. Hello folks, welcome to Netcruzer Cars. I'm sitting in my Mark 7 Golf GTI right now, and it's just starting to get sunset time, but I just pulled in the driveway. But I want to go over some of the electronics. So the radio system is booting up right now. This is an accurate representation of how long it takes to boot up the radio. I'm just going to mute it. If you have navigation, you do not get a mute button. It's automatically connected to my phone. This is Volkswagen's MIB 1 system. The car's a 2015. This is the very first year that the Mark 7 Golf and GTI and Golf R came to Canada. The radio system. You have your AM, FM, XM, your Bluetooth or aux. No, it doesn't even have aux, or the MFI input. These cars do not have USB ports, but you can get an adapter which gives you a Lightning or a dock cable or Android. But Volkswagen Group cars signed an agreement with this MFI connection, and none of the Volkswagen Group cars got USB ports till after 2016. Phone is Bluetooth connection. Voice control, I should make a whole video about voice control because it's fairly useless but somewhat funny and entertaining at the same time. This is the radio display. You can see it's acceptable for speed, but it's kind of laggy when you want to be jumping around two screens. I normally run my gauges really dim, but for this demonstration, I need to brighten them up. So I'm going to put them on max brightness just so you can see what's going on. Here's the settings for the radio, and notice every time you do an animation it's like it's on the back side of the display. There's lots of little tweaks like that in Volkswagen infotainment systems. Even something like the odometer, it doesn't just change a number as a digital display, it actually rolls over the numbers like it's a physical analog gauge. The other thing that's nice about the GTIs is the actual gauge displays are very nicely designed. I actually like these analog gauges more than on the Golf R, because on the Golf R, the way that the speed ticks work, it's a different design, and on the Golf R it's a solid band of white or gray. I don't necessarily like it. I like the way that these gauges are designed much better. I will deep dive into the center screen in a minute, but I just want to go a bit more over this radio. It does have a proximity sensor bar here, and this design of this radio where it has the gloss plastic surround, this was only available in 2015. In 2016 they changed it to a matte surround, and the screen got a little bit bigger and the speed of the processor got faster. So things like going into, that wasn't a good example, but things that were a little bit slow with this interface before got sped up. So you can change your band between FM, XM, AM here. There's multiple ways you can do tuning. You can set your channel presets here. The main screen is all of your favorites. You can have 3 screens of presets. I think so. That's 15. Yeah, you can have 15 presets on your main screens. You can have a tuner here where you can manually tune or selectively tune, or use this dial here. Let me get back a display. How do I get back a display? Click it. View allows you to change your viewing defaults, and then the setup screen we saw earlier, which is all the radio setup screen. So that's AM FM radio. In media you have Bluetooth, as well as the other things is SD cards. It also has a CD player, so that's in the dashboard. You have a CD player and 2 SD card readers. Bluetooth connection for the phone works fine, and I use this quite often because these cars do not have CarPlay. CarPlay came out in 2016. So this is my phone setup. You can make calls or stream media over Bluetooth. Voice control. These are the commands you can do by... What are my commands? So these are the things you can do.
Telephone commands are always available. Dial number, call name, or say call followed by the name of the contact.
So the car does have voice control, but it's pretty bad. It reconnected to my Bluetooth on my phone after doing the voice command, and now it just started playing a podcast. So yeah, it will automatically reconnect. But mute is not available if you have nav, so you have to use the volume knob. And one OCD thing about the volume knob is that the logo changes with it. So instead of it being just the outside ring sliding, I just got it out of Bluetooth mode because it kept screwing up my recording. There is one thing, the mute also works as a play pause button when you're on media. So that's what happened, is I pressed mute and then it started to play Bluetooth from my phone. So that's a little weird quirk, but if you have navigation, you don't have to worry about that. Sound is the sound settings and sound profile for this car. So you do have volume control, treble, mid, bass. You have an equalizer that you can play with. You have a balance fader that you can play with. So you can set your sound stage if you wanted it so that you have the best surround sound. You could put it over where you sit most of the time, but centered sounds always sounds the best for me. Touch screen tone tells you if you are touching the screen, it makes the beeps, and then you have a subwoofer volume adjustment as well here. So I have my subwoofer set on 4. If we go into the car menus, driving school mode I have enabled from VCDS tuning. You don't get that normally. You would get this type of informational display since refuel, extended period. These are my average economies. And there's other views in here, such as convenience, consumers. I don't know why they call it that, but it tells you how much stuff is on that's consuming fuel, and vehicle status, which on my car, I only have the tire pressure monitoring. So that's the only thing that I could see in here. You can't really see anything else. You can reset tire pressure monitoring, and here, if there was any faults that were in the display, it would tell you that. So I believe that's everything that you can do from this radio. If you want to get into the detailed car setups, to change that, you go into the car menu and hit setup. And here's all of the car tweaks that you can do inside the MIB one. And I have made a video about that, I know, previously, so go take a look at that if you're interested in what all these things do. But there is quite a bit. So you can factory reset, change your units, multifunction display, operation, open and close. And if you tweak your stuff with VCDS, when you go into some of these menus, sometimes you get additional functions. That's what you can do. I also have the mode button. The only way to get at the different car settings for the mode is with the physical mode button. And in here I have 3 modes, because I have a basic, well, I have a GTI Autobahn, but this is before dynamic chassis control, adaptive suspension, and some of the other tuning things that have happened. So I have the ability to have sport mode, individual mode, or normal mode. And I guess I was driving around in sport mode. I didn't realize. Individual mode, here's my settings. I like to have steering on sport, engine on normal, front lighting on sport, and that's all I can adjust on this. In the engine setting is just your throttle tip in, how much throttle you get. I do have the sound actor enabled, and it does rumble the windshield when you're on the gas. In this display, the center display, most of the time I have the real-time economy on, and since I live in Canada, we get liters per 100 kilometers, so that's what L over H means. Currently using 0.9 liters per hour sitting here. If we start driving, it turns into liters per 100 kilometers. The MFD display is all controlled by here and a little bit by here. This one over this side is mostly cruise control related. This is all cruise control, and this is volume for radio. This is skip forward, skip back for radio. This is the useless voice assistant, which I never use. Mostly for this display, this is your D-pad, up, down, left, and right, and OK. And that's your dedicated phone button. So let's go into this display a little bit. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to scroll down, and here's, I'm in the vehicle information. So I've got my oil temperature, current real-time fuel consumption, average consumption over my drive to town and back, 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers since last refuel, and I recently just refueled. If I'm doing a full highway run, if I'm going all highway all the time, I can get that down to around 5.5 liters per 100K. Very fuel efficient car. That's another thing I want to mention about, if you're looking for a Mark 7 that is between 2015 and 2017, the manual transmission is far more efficient for highway driving because it has a much taller 6th gear versus the DSG. The DSG does not have a very good overdrive gear until 2018 and up. Back in here, keep scrolling. Range, I have 560 kilometers left of this tank with just over 3/4 of a tank left. Convenience consumer is that same thing that we saw in the radio display. It's really not that useful. It's telling me that those things are going to be using up some fuel. Travel time is how much I've traveled recently, how much distance I've traveled, what my average speed was, and what my current speed is. And I have a speed warning set to 120 kilometers an hour where I get an audible ding to tell me that I'm speeding. That is selectable speed. I set it to 120 just so that I know when I'm going 120 kph. Then we can scroll over, and we were in the driving data is what I just showed you. There's also a compass, but all you can do in here is you have compass. That's it. If I press up and down, there's nothing else you can do. So hit OK. Scroll over. I've got my audio settings, and here I can control most of the radio however I want it. I've just started it playing. I don't really want it to play though, so I'm going to hit mute again. Then we go over here. Telephone. Vehicle status is anything that's going on with the vehicle, which for my car there's no problems. Scroll over again, and we have a lap timer. Because this is a GTI, we do get a lap timer system where you can, like a sport chrono, you can start a lap timer when you're racing. Driving data is where we just were. That is all the information you can get in the MIB 1 system. Most of the climate control stuff is physical buttons, but there is a way to get at it by hitting menu, where then you can get additional climate control settings if you want to visualize what's happening in your screen. But you never have to use this. You can do it all via manual buttons. So I think that's the coverage of my 2015 Mark 7 GTI and its current interior and infotainment system. The other change is going to be related to the trim. Now it has, the sun is setting right now, but the trim is different on the GTI, where it's a net optic style trim pattern. It's not the pure gloss black, but they did transition this trim over the years, where now if you buy a new GTI today, or even a 2017 or a 2016, I believe that this optical pattern has turned into a fully gloss piano black plastic. So that is a thing. Also in the GTI, you get the red accents, you get LED footwell lights, and then on the trim as well, you get red. Okay guys, if you enjoyed this or you learned something, hit that like button. If you're new around here, subscribe. If you want to talk to me, leave a comment down below. And as always, thanks for watching. That's unique about the switch gear on the GTI is that you, on my car, this is a dummy button, so cruise control, but I don't have any kind of adaptive or scrolling to set distance. This car does not have the assistive devices. This car does not have any park sensors and does not have radar assisted cruise control, but my GTI does have fog lights. So you pull this out once and then fog lights turn on, and you push it in for fog lights off, and this controls your the brightness of your display. Mirror settings are here. Oh, my heated mirrors were on. And lock and unlock. And that's it.